Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about composition. So I'd like to start with a concept that I got from a graphic design course a long time ago. And I'm going to put that aside. And we started with cutting out little circles and composing them, making compositions on a background, and how you lay these out and how they relate to the frame becomes a big part of composition. But I don't want to do that today. We can maybe go into that a little bit later. But as part of that, what happens is we have a very simple, or the way that I think about it often is I will try to simplify my scene into these very graphic elements. So what I did is I just cut out a piece of paper over here, the shape of a nerd, just to explain some of what happens. So we have a very simple shape, and then we have, in this case, I've also simplified the background dramatically. And what we're talking about in art terms is a figure-ground relationship. So we have a figure on the page, and the ground is really the rest. We might have multiple figures, and how those relate to each other and to the ground is something that we can dive into a little bit later. But in this case, so here I have this figure, and I have it pretty much centered in the frame. And that is, so the relationship of the figure to the ground is pretty symmetrical at this point. Symmetry is a way to compose an image, but something that I want to talk about today to add a little bit of tension and change that up a little bit is the rule of thirds. So I'm sure you've seen this grid on a lot of cameras, or in this case it's on my phone. And what it does is it has two horizontal lines and two vertical lines. And when we use those, we can affect our composition a little bit. So if I bring this down onto that line, it will add some interest to the picture. If we have things that come into these intersections, so if, for instance, I had a logo on here, and I bring the logo into an intersection, that will also, right, if that's what I want to focus on, or if I want to focus on whatever it is. So I try to break down what I'm seeing into this very simplistic idea of a figure and ground, and the relationship of the figure to the ground. If I go diagonally, what does that do, right? If I bring something on this line, how does that affect it? Try a bunch of different things. But start playing around with this rule of thirds and see if you can find some compositions that are more interesting by lining things up on these lines, and see how that affects your compositions. Let's try that out. All right, thanks for watching.